Many of us have those stubborn pounds that seem impossible to lose, no matter how good we eat or how hard we work out. My solution is PlushCare. PlushCare is a leading telehealth provider with doctors who are there for you day and night to partner with you in your weight loss journey. They can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound for those who qualify. Plus, they accept most insurance plans. To get started, visit plushcare.com/weightloss. That's plushcare.com/weightloss.
Hiring for your small business? If you're not looking for professionals on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. That's like looking for your car keys in a fish tank. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So start looking in the right place. With LinkedIn, you can hire professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Hey there, it's Michelle Norris. I'm host of a podcast called Your Mama's Kitchen. When I travel, I'm usually looking for a way to find a taste of home when I'm not at home. And one of the things I love to do when I am at home is entertain. And Airbnb allows me to do that. When I was in California recently, I rented a house that had a great kitchen. And when we were sitting around the table, we were all thinking, we're in someone else's house. Someone could be in all of our homes as well. If you have a home, but you're not always at home, you have an Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
G'day and welcome to the Farms Advice Podcast. This podcast is the second best thing in the world. First best thing is having a profitable farm that gives you the time to have your time. This episode today is with Hayley Grosser, the abundant farmer, a financial coach, helping farmers, get back into their finances. She grew up on the family farm but wasn't actually intending to get into farming later on. She wanted to go back to the city, move away from the farm, never wanted to marry a farmer. So she moved to Adelaide not long after finishing school and went to uni and studied business, majoring in property valuation. So she left uni, met her husband, married a farmer, as it turns out. Then also went back to uni and did a master's in accounting. So all of her background has been around business and accounting. And she has a thing for numbers as well. You'll find that out later on. And then when she married her husband, landed back on the farm, they actually, he was a farmer as well. But due to some conflicting views, some conflicting values, they actually decided to go and get a loan for their own farm, start their own farming business. That's where we land here today. The differing views between the family about farming and both in different stages of life, they really wanted to get out there and have a crack, just like a lot of young'uns out there today. They're really passionate about it, really wanted to expand and grow. Martin's parents, Hayley's husband, weren't quite so much. They were probably more in consolidating in their retirement phase. Didn't want to take too many risks. So they decided, for business and for their lives, they decided to go it alone and start farming their own business from scratch. Keen to hear this. Yep. And I'd imagine that's not the easiest thing to do, starting from scratch, especially for yourselves being like generational sort of farmers as for that. But like I was at the Young Farmer Business Conference and I actually sometimes envy those new entrants, the first gen farmers that have the ability to start from scratch to sort of design the program that they want. Did you find that pretty similar and like stress relieving, or was it more stress loaded on top?
Some sheep as well too. So we were really able to go down that path, and that was really great. Probably on the other hand, lack of equity, or pretty much, very small amount of equity to start with, very limited cash flow, not really having anybody to bounce ideas off, mentors around, kind of the family structure wasn't there, and we didn't really have anyone to do that. So it was great in one sense that we were able to go ahead and do what we wanted to do. But we just found from a support point of view and obviously a financial point of view, it was pretty challenging at times.
Yeah. When that mentor piece, people or younger farmers were saying they're struggling to find a mentor. And I really think it's struggling to ask. Now that
Yeah.
you're in your role though, but before then, did you sort of start to garner your experiences got a little bit better on farm once you did have a mentor, or did you ever get a mentor? Now
Yeah.
that you're probably one.
So I think before probably we moved into a role and took our business into Farm Owners Academy. So
Yep.
before that, we really wished we had a mentor, and we were probably really too scared to ask. There was a few farmers in our area who we really looked up to, but we
Yep.
really had the mindset around that they wouldn't want to share their ideas. They wouldn't, they'd keep them close by. And we thought that even if we approached them, they're not very forthcoming with information. So we probably did a lot of looking over the fence. We would compare our crops to what they were doing, look at what they were doing different. And they were mentoring us in a way without them even knowing that they were mentoring us, I suppose.
Which is the
And then
best
it
way.
wasn't until we moved into the farm owner space that we realized that there actually is a lot of people out there who were really willing to mentor, but they just were never asked.
Yeah.
And it really blew me away, the fact that there's so many farmers that actually want to give back, and especially to the younger generation. But we have this mentality thinking that they don't want to help. But they have this mentality that they're just waiting for somebody to ask, and they just haven't had that yet.
It comes down to your approach to it, I think. People are a bit standoffish or worried about what others think. When if you just jumped in there, you're probably how much further ahead you'd actually be by having that mentor, getting him now rather than getting them 5 years, 20 years from time. There'd be plenty out there that haven't had a mentor and they've just done the hard yards out there. But in some way or form, it's going to be a mentor coming into your farming life at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
Without you sort of knowing it as well.
Yeah, we've been in farming for, I think, 16 years this year.
Yep.
And most of our accelerated growth has come probably in the last 6 years when we've been surrounded by mentors.
Yep.
So before that, we were doing it ourselves, and we were doing it was trial and error, basically, wishing for somebody to be around we could bounce ideas off. As soon as we found that platform and found those mentors, our business really took off.
Yeah. It's the compounding of knowledge. Mum actually said that my podcasts sound a lot better these days. And I think it has come from the time of reading books. As stupid, or as silly as it sounds, like over time you start to get better and better. And then like 3 years, not much progression. And the last 2 years, in the 5 years, you're like, holy shit, how did I actually get here? And you didn't notice it, but it's just those experiences coming down. And half the reason why the podcast started, to get this knowledge out, not on a piece of paper, but into a medium, into your ears as well. I think it's fantastic. So, Hayley, for your current role, talk to me about this. You're the abundant farmer.
Yep. So
what do you do?
Yep. Yeah, so I coach farmers around money. So basically what I found in our own farming business. So I come out of uni with a full business background. I mastered in accounting. So I was very much on top of the numbers. I was very much on top of knowing where our money was going, where it was coming from. And because we had limited equity, I was really good at basically making every dollar count.
Yeah.
But what I come to realize in that process was that for some reason we weren't ever getting anywhere. Like we would just get in front and then something had happened, like some expenses would pop up or something else would happen that would, bring us back to the same situation. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I think I took it along a lot on myself because I was the one responsible for our books. I was one responsible for our finances, but also trained in it. So I was kind of like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? I'm doing all the things that we're supposed to do around money, but why isn't anything changing? And so what I come to realize, and it was when we joined Farm Owners that I was listening to someone speak about it at one of our conferences, that I realized that my mindset was the thing that was working against me. So how I thought about money, how I felt about money, and my relationship with money was actually having a bigger impact on our finances than what I was or wasn't doing with my money. So we had these amazing goals and we wanted to grow, but it was like I was going one way with our vision, but our mindset and the way we thought about money, success, and everything was going and pulling in the opposite direction. So this is why, like, we'd feel like we went forward and then something would happen for our money to go back to the same place. So I very soon realized, obviously through reading books, and I delved into everything I could about it, around our mindset and money, and realized that our set point around money was basically set at just getting by. So every time we got more money, we would just do something or something would happen where we'd come back to default. And so what I realized, like, I worked on this over time, and then just talking to other people and other farmers and who were having the same experience, and realizing that there's actually more to money than just the thing that we do. There's more to money than just the budget. There's more to money than just benchmarking. There's more to money than the doing things. And there is nobody out there teaching it, and nobody out there working with farmers around this, because we're working with such big numbers now, especially now that, like, land prices have gone up and obviously commodities have gone up, inputs have gone up. We're most of the time working, in the millions of dollars, sometimes, more so multi-million dollars. But we're actually not trained in our mindsets to be able to handle that much money or be able to grow that much money.
Yeah.
So we've got this disconnect between how farmers think about money, how they act around money, and what they do with it, and what actually lines up to success and how we actually grow that money. So, you could put two farmers next to each other on exactly the same land, give them exactly the same inputs, the same money to start with, the same machinery. And every single time they will come out at the other end, like let's say at the end of the season, and they will have two different lots of money left over because of the way they think and the way they feel about money, and then how that's influencing what actually happens in their farming business and the decisions that they make.
Do you think like one there would be a optimist and one's a pessimist sort of for the markets and stuff like that? Is that the split?
Yeah, potentially. So one could have quite a good mindset around money where they know that money's a tool. They really enjoy looking after it. They've got a great relationship with it. They look after it. They do their figures. They appreciate it. They put it in places to invest. And then you could have somebody on the other hand who has a real lack mentality around money, where there's never enough money, there's never enough rain. It only takes the next season and then we'll be in a better place. It's always an external factor that's got a weighing on it. Money's scarce. We have to work hard for money. So two completely different mindsets will come to the piece and bring two different results massively all the time.
Yeah, and I think we want to pass down the knowledge of the successor in that sort of situation, but also for the other person to learn from what that is. Why is it that people balk at the F-bomb? And when I say F-bomb, it is finances within the farming game. People just sort of, I don't know what it is, just from my experiences from the podcast and everything and hearing of other stories. Why are we sort of not diving into our finances, or even like the approach, like talking about the mindset with two different farmers there, having different mindsets or looking for opportunities? Why is there a difference in that?
Yeah. So I think with finances, it's like when you say the word, the word budget, people kind of like contract and they're like, oh, I don't even want to think about that.
Well,
How can you even say that word? Yeah, it's like you're swearing at them. But I think it's because there's a lack of confidence in it. Like money and finances are put across to be very serious. And it's like if we're not looking after it properly, then that's made to mean something about us. We're not good at something, or we're not good enough, or we don't know enough. I think a lot of people think that they don't know enough, they're not skilled enough to be able to do the basic things to look after it. And I think it comes down to a confidence that comes from competence. It's not really taught. Like, we're not taught, unless you go to ag school that's directly agribusiness, not the everyday person is actually taught about it. And we're actually only ever taking on what potentially our parents showed us. So if they just thought finances were just ticking off your BAS and tax returns and things like that, then that's all we'll put emphasis in. So there's very much a learnt behavior behind that, in terms of they might have just learnt that it's not important. There's also a confidence thing that I said that leads to lack of confidence around money. So it's easy to bury our heads in the sand and not learn about it, go out to the paddock and do the things that we really love doing. And I think the other part of that is nobody really talks about money. So
Yeah.
there's no platform, no place where people can openly talk about money, because no one wants to admit that they don't know their numbers sometimes. Like, they don't want to admit that they don't know their business as well. But what they don't realize is that they think that they're isolated and that it's only them. So they can't actually go to their neighbor and actively have a conversation and say, I'm worried and stressed about money right now,
Yeah.
because they're all worried about what the other person's going to think of them or their business, of what they've made it mean about them. So there's no place to go, yay, I'm really excited. We've had a great season. This is fantastic. We had so many great wins with money. And equally, there's no place to go and go, I'm really worried and stressed about money. And then someone else can say, oh, actually, I'm feeling the same. Thanks for sharing. So finances is kind of put in the corner and going, it's a serious thing. You need to do it. You need to make sure you're ticking the boxes and do all the things. But there's no support behind it. And that's where it's like, I think emotionally it comes from a place where people are like, I just don't want to touch it, because it just triggers way too many things inside.
I think once you pass that first barrier of embarrassing yourself with your numbers, you think, oh, old mate next door, he's got embarrassing numbers too for the season, maybe because the market's down or something. But after that, there's only going to be incremental changes going up north positively for your finances. It's just that one barrier that's annoying, and it's all too similar for every farmer out there. What is the biggest challenge? Once we do get past that barrier, we've developed our confidence within the F word and the M word, money and finance. What's the biggest challenges for farmers? Like the sort of the lowest hanging fruits, people that can take away and go look away after this episode. What are the lowest hanging fruits and those challenges associated with them?
Yeah. So it's definitely probably setting financial goals.
Yep.
So a lot of people will tell you that they want to have a different financial reality to a point, or they want to make more money, or they want to do more things. But when you talk to them, nobody's setting any financial goals. So inadvertently, there's no guidepost to go to get to. So what are we trying to sit down and do our budget for? Because how I kind of refer to it in my Abundant Farmer group is that we're not actually budgeting. What we're actually doing is we're creating a cash flow plan that lines up with our goals in our business, in our finances. So if we can get past the fact that we're doing a budget just for the bank or for the purposes of most people think we've got to do a budget to contract and condense down what we're spending. But if we flip that on its head and break through that barrier and get people doing their finances, get it lined up with the fact that, yeah, we're doing this cash flow plan because we want it to align with our future and our vision and our goals, then that tool becomes an actual document that people want to work with.
Yep.
So setting those financial goals is probably something to go away and have a think about. So, what is the ultimate goal that you're looking for? What's something that if you could absolutely have that would be the thing that you want. So, for us, potentially it's being able to run a farming business that allows us to build wealth, as well as our children to come in and build wealth off that as well too.
Yep.
So having that as kind of our big goal, then we can break it back. So, well, where do we want to be in 3 years financially? Where do we want to be in the next 12 months financially? And then what are the little increments we can do in the next 90 days to then be able to step our stone towards those financial goals? So without doing that, we're just going round in circles. We want our financial reality to get better, but we actually don't have any guideposts or any strategy to get there. So that would be my biggest thing moving forward, is actually start to look at what you really want financially and open up communication about it, because I think it's the same thing. We sit down and we're like, oh, we can't talk about money. We can't talk about the fact that we want more money. Gee, what's everybody going to think about that? But actually, we want to be doing it for the betterment of us, so that we actually have a direction that we're heading, so that we can start then aligning how we think to what it is that we want to create with money.
I think like a bit of guilt in being profitable as a farm, like making heaps of money when others aren't currently, could play a role. How do you sort of coach the mindset like throughout the initial beginnings, and also a deadline's playing a role within that, like holding them accountable to 3 years we need to be there, and if they aren't, the mindset of moving forward when you don't achieve those sort of short-term goals.
Yeah, 100%. I really look at goals as guideposts more so as you need to get there by that point. The reason that I use them as guideposts is we need to be moving somewhere to understand where our blockages are. And when I'm
Yep.
talking blockages, it's like, well, what are the things that are stopping us from getting there? So I actually celebrate the fact if they're not getting to a goal or they're not progressing, it's like, great, what do we have to work on to clear this so we can open the flow of money basically coming into your business?
Yep.
So what we need to do then is like everybody has different triggers. And for example, like when we're training our mindset around money, it's like, okay, if we're looking at having, $250,000 worth of passive income as our, let's say like big goal that we want to get to, if we're somebody that has been conditioned or experienced the work hard to make money belief, then we're not ever actually going to see that as a way that we're going to get there, because we're going to see it as the easy way. We're creating passive income, then that's something that's easy. So our mind will always block us from getting there. So what we need to do is underlyingly say, work on the belief around it's hard to make money, so that we can start clearing that to move forward with the actual goal.
The more you sort of talk, if you notice my head getting tilted more, it's because I'm trying to take it all in, learning on the go. For the goals, like the 1, 3, and the sort of big, hairy, audacious goals, having your retirement, and not relying on the farm, having the kids come into the farm and everything. What are farmers? What are they looking for the most once they do have the knowledge there for their finances, their money to manage? Is it we can sort of use our farms as a leverage point, a vehicle to get what we want, but is it actually knowing what we want as well? So we want some off-farm income, that passive income to sort of come through. We can start to look at these opportunities, the cool opportunities. I like it. I think it's really cool. You can actually use your farm to offshoot some money into an investment sort of fund, and once you find the right investment, go for it. Do your due diligence on this. We're not giving advice on that. That is the cool stuff once you get to that sort of level, isn't it? And how do you sort of start to leverage your farming vehicle?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great thing, is it like our farming business is the vehicle that we've chosen to use to create the life that we want.
Yep.
So if we're not clear on the life that we want, how do we know how to leverage it to get there? And what do we know how to leverage to get there? So I think that's where like having those goals and seeing beyond what we can see in the everyday is really important. And then like we can reverse engineer it to see what points we do have to do to leverage it. Because if we want to use our business to become, like a lot of people that I'm working with are working towards freedom. So not necessarily like complete financial freedom where they're getting paid every day and not doing a thing, but what they want is freedom of choice.
Yep.
So how do we create that freedom of choice? So that might necessarily just be through where do we put our money in terms of investment, but where do we need to invest in our farm so that our farm is doing more work for us and we can create more freedom?
I think for farmers, a big thing is shooting ourselves in the foot with our own sort of deadlines. Like we put them so far ahead when we could probably decrease what like our expectations are. We say 10 years when we could get this plan sort of done over in 2 years, and then we're so much further ahead. Maybe we get it done in 3 years, but we plan for 2, but that's much better than going for 10 to give you some breathing room, time to think in there. 10 years is a long time on farm, and markets can move a lot quicker. So that's probably playing in on the mindset of the farmer and that probably the financial health of the farmer as well. How have you seen that sort of with your farmers that you've come across in the Abundant Farmer group?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens is most farmers will think big or think so big,
Yep.
but their mind won't be able to conceptually be able to do it. So they just get overwhelmed and then they just put it to the back burner. They're like, it's too hard, or we're not going to get there, or they get disheartened because they're not there. And I think that's the importance of really chunking it back. And that's why we add in the 3-year goals, the 1-year goals,
Yeah.
so that they know that each quarter they're actually progressing towards that BHAG. And it kind of sits in the background. It's like, okay, this is what we're going to, but we're actually not focusing way out there right now. What we're actually only doing is we're focusing on a shorter term. So if we were to know that we are on track in the next 12 months, what would that look like? And that might be $50,000 in investments. That might be an additional worker potentially to be able to free up some time for us. It might be that we're paying off some debt. So we can then focus short term. And then when we go from that short term 12 months back to 3 months, then what we can do is we can actually start getting small wins every quarter. Because when we're like, we can break down that goal even further, we can start ticking it off and going, okay, well, this 90 days, we put $5,000 into investments. I'm getting a small win. And every time we're getting small wins, that accumulates to then, ticking off your 1-year goals, ticking off your 3-year goals. And then, you can actually start to see that the path to that BHAG starts to open up. So it's like you need the reward system in your mind to know that you're getting there. But when we don't have any kind of goals or financial plans in place, in between the BHAG and now, we just don't do a thing because we can't see logically all the steps to get there. We have to start the steps to allow the next ones to open up.
What does a financial plan look like for, say, the average farmer? And also, how can you hold, personally, those that aren't under you accountable to your work in the office and on farm? So the planner and holding yourself accountable to those.
Yeah. In terms of creating a plan for themselves.
There's probably a standalone question in, like, overall, what is a financial plan look like? How do you set one up? Are you going to do it on Excel, like quite down to the detail of what it actually is? Is it in my head? Hopefully trying to get stuff out of your head and onto a piece of paper, Excel, wherever. And then also, once you got your plan, how to hold yourself accountable for that. There's a inspirational quote or video goes around that's no one's coming for you. No one's telling you to do your budgets or your BAS or to look for the financial opportunities to leverage and whatnot. I think it's quite cool and it kick up the arse also. But starting with a financial plan, what's it look like and how are they doing it?
Yeah. So what I generally take people through is I've basically got a little map, like a little road on a piece of paper, and I've got now,
Yep.
and I've got, sometimes I use the BHAG as 25 years, but that will adjust depending on where you are at in life and what,
Yep.
what time frame that we're working for. So I do a now picture and we do a snapshot of where you are now, how old you are, how old your kids are, what assets do you have, what investments do you have, and look at a snapshot right now. Then what we do on a bit of paper in whatever period of time moving forward we're looking at, then I get them to write down how old they are, how old their kids are, what their assets are, what life looks like, how they want to feel about money. So we then do a snapshot as to where we're going. So that gives us kind of 2 points, and I think it's really good. I'm a really visual person, but it also caters for the people who need to write things down, is that you can actually start to see, right, we're here and we're there. Because what a lot of people are not doing, I suppose, is they don't know where they're at right now, let alone where they are at the future. So if we just start to write down where it is that we want to be and start having conversations around that. So a lot of the time we're opening up conversations between husbands and wives who may not have ever thought about this. So they may have come together, they've been doing their things on the farm, but they may not have actually talked about, well, where do we actually want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time? So the first part of the plan is just, getting an idea of where everyone wants to be at, so that we can accommodate that going forward. So once we do that, we put a map on, and then on the same page, I'll have some guideposts at 3 years and 1 year. So we then look at that and go, okay, well, what do we want life to look like in 12 months' time? How do we want to be around money? What do we want to achieve around money? What are the things? We do that for 3 and 1 year's time. So we have this map on a page. And then from that, there's just, you can use Excel. There's lots of, I suppose, goal setting planners out there, but I just use Excel, and I have our overarching goal at the top. I then break it down into sections where I've got our 3-year goal and our 1-year goal, and then another section that has what's our focus for the next 90 days. So we can take that map, put it into a tangible, logical form that you can see, that you can put on the wall, and then it's like reverse engineering your dreams. So it's like, from that roadmap, how do we create smart goals then around this, so that we can then go about keeping each other accountable for that. And I 100% agree, we have to have responsibility around money. So nobody else is coming to, nobody else is just going to rock up on the door and say, here's $1 million, all your problems are solved, you never have to worry about this again. Like, we're completely responsible for the financial reality that we're creating. And that was probably a big shift for us, is that we stepped into the fact that we took 100% ownership for where we were financially and what we needed to do about that. So I think there's an element of accountability that comes with us. We have to hold ourselves. We have to hold ourselves accountable if we want to take responsibility for that. So there's the element of that. But what I find too is very few farmers are having financial meetings. So what we want to be doing is we want to be keeping each other accountable. So financially, I'd love to see farmers. I love in our Abundant Farmer group, we aim to have financial meetings at least every month, because things can change a lot in farming. Like, you can have different timing issues. So you can have things that pop up, unexpected expenses, change in season, lack of rainfall, more rainfall, whatever that looks like. So it's a place to keep communication open in terms of where we are and where we're headed to as a business, so everybody knows on the same page what they're doing, but also a place to go, how are we tracking with our financial goals? Are we doing what we'd said we'd do for each other, for the business, in the past month, so that you can keep each other on track?
What are the reports, or what are the things we should look at in that financial meeting? So we're not going, you don't want to go across every detail for the team, the management team or whatnot, however your family works, how big your team is as well. What reports should we print off and pass around?
So basically every month, what we tend to do is we look at our cash flow. So I have 2 different cash flow plans running. I have one that I do at the start of the year and is completely locked. So what I do in that sheet is I add our actuals to budget to that. So I'll put in our actuals every single month, and I'll see the variance. So I use that document to see how well my budgeting's going and how kind of close I am to that. As I track that through the year, by the end of the year, what happens is I have a look at that and see if there's any improvements I could make from my point of view to make my budgeting better. So that I can see, do I have timing issues that are always out? How can I refine this? The second budget, so we're looking at the actuals, in that month. We'll have a look at the actuals and how they're tracking. The next thing we look at is my second cash flow plan, where it's obviously a flowing plan, where I'm updating it every single month based on the season, based on expenses that are popping up, based on what's actually happening in real time. So it's a real time plan. So this is what we're probably discussing more. So we look at the actuals, to go, okay, where are we out? Is there any adjustments we need to make going forward based on this? But the next one is that live plan is really where we're making all the changes and where we're like, this is what's happening. So we can see that we might have some extra cash come September. What are we going to do with it? We might see that we have a shortfall come September. What are we going to do about it? So we're having these conversations around that. And then how is that cash flow plan playing into what it is we're creating goal-wise? Because really they're the 2 things that we want to be comparing. How are our goals tracking how are we tracking cash flow wise, and do we know what's happening in our business? Can we make really quick decisions if we need to?
If you don't make your budget, like you're over by a substantial amount, or if you're nearly spot on, or you didn't spend what you thought you would, what different actions do we take off the back of that to improve our budget to get it down closer? Or like in the other way, are we actually spending enough money to be profitable enough, spend money to make money? Is that deteriorating or like making an impact on the business? What and how do they differ, those decisions?
Yeah. So if we're tracking and we're starting to go over budget,
Yep.
then I start looking at, obviously, I'm not a big advocate of just cutting expenses to fit into a budget, because I don't want to cut off, obviously, our income earning or our profit earning potential.
Yep.
So what I'll look at, okay, is there anything in my expenses that I can update? Like, what is it that, I can change? What is it that maybe has some room for movement without kind of cutting out the key drivers that we need to make profit? And then kind of look at it and go, okay, well, what is it that's going wrong? How can we maybe utilize the same expenses to create more income? What can we do there? Like, is that a more focus on marketing? Like, say, for example, grain marketing, or how we're marketing our sheep? What do we have to do in order to maximize our profit? And if it's the season playing out, and we're doing everything that we can within our control, it allows us to be proactive about what additional support do we need financially, for maybe the remainder of the season. So that's probably the points that I look at for that. If it's tracking on point and you're relatively close, I think, it can give you really good confidence in terms of what you're doing. But it's also not a time to get complacent either, because I think, people either have their budget or they're like, oh, it's tracking okay. Yep. Oh, we'll go and buy that thing and we'll go and do this thing. And then all of a sudden it gets thrown out. So I think when you're kind of tracking really well, I think it's kind of like giving yourself a tick to go, yep, we're on the right track. Let's keep this going. Let's make sure that we're utilizing all that we can to produce the income and the profit that we want. And then if we're under tracking, for example, looking at the areas where there is more room for growth. Like, where could we utilize this money to get a return? So it might, we potentially look at the farm first and go, right, where can we actually make more of this? Is putting a little bit more, a higher rate of urea out, for example, going to give us a $2 return to every $1 investment, or greater than that? What's that going to look like? Is there other places we could invest some money into that might create efficiencies that might then turn into cash flow? So how can we do this? Or it might be a place that actually our budget's on point. We might have received more money than what we thought. We might be, spending less than what we thought at the time. Okay, is there another way that we can potentially make this money into more money as the season goes on? And that could be off farm in a short-term investment, to then be able to basically grow and expand that money to enhance the business as well too.
I used to manage pretty large marketing budgets when I was in London for a bit, and taking that experience and bringing it back into the farm and looking at the overall picture. We used to be able to, for every dollar spent, we would get $10 return or $5 return or $2 return. Is that sort of the process, looking for these opportunities? If you're underspending, we should put $2 more in here because we know we're going to get $4 back. Probably more so for broad acre. The livestock gurus probably have it down to a T as well, but broad acre, the commodity is a little bit different. The market's a bit different as well. Is that how it's working? Is that a thing to look at as well?
Definitely. I think we've always got to look at the return that we're getting from something.
Yeah.
We have to know our numbers, and we have to know, instead of just going, I'll throw out that truckload of urea. Yep, I know it's going to work. Actually coming back and going, yes, it potentially is going to bring in more yield. But what extent is that going to be? Am I spending $1 to get $1.50 back, or am I spending $2 to get $5 back? Because there's a very big difference, obviously, between pushing yield and going, I got 10 ton to the hectare or 10 ton to the acre or whatever that is, to kind of be like, yay. But did that make a difference in your overall profit that you actually made on that crop? So I think it's not just a matter of going, yep, we've got extra money, let's throw it into something. actually start to calculate, well, what is going to give me the best return on that money right now? It could be just to keep it in your overdraft if you're in an overdraft system. It could be, a high interest saver on the side. It could be a multitude of different things. There's not one way about it, but it's actually starting to work out, how can I make the most of the dollars that we have and how can I get the best return on them? Because I think there's a lot of money that gets left on the table, or a lot of easy money
Yeah.
that could actually come off because we're not looking at it from an objective point of view, because our emotion gets in the way when it comes to money.
Yeah, I think this is the coolest conversation. And hopefully we're putting a bit of sexiness into finances on farm and what we can do with it, looking for opportunities. I think it's not always farmers get the ability to overlook or stand back and see what they're doing all of the time. But with you, you're in a unique position with your farming cohort. What are some trends that you've sort of noticed with your farmers that are good money managers and whatnot, or what have they taken away? What are some key elements there?
Yeah. So the biggest key element that I noticed, like in the abundant farmers that I work with, is that they love money now. So
Yeah.
not from the sense of like, I love money and it's that whole side of it, but they actually really enjoy it. They're
Yeah.
really happy around it. They're really calm. They're really in control because they're really trusting with it, and they've built a really good relationship. I had one of my abundant farmers reach out just before this podcast actually and say, because I popped on my Facebook stories that I was doing our benchmarking today for our own business,
Yeah.
and she popped on there that for the last 2 days she's had her head in their cash flow plan, and she's like, I was never like that. I never wanted to do that. I wanted to, bury my head in the sand. And these same like farmers actually come to me a little while ago and said, for the first time we sat down and we worked through our cash flow plan, and neither of us left the room and we didn't have an argument. So the biggest thing is they're really happy about money. They understand it. They're confident about it. They're calm. They're trusting of it. Communication between partners has opened up. They're
Yeah.
understanding how each other ticks around it. So where they used to be triggered by things about, they just won't let me spend money, or, blah, blah, blah. They're actually able to understand why each other has the thinking, because we're all looking at money from a different perspective. So it's like every time we pick up money or we deal with money, we're each putting on a set of glasses that kind of biases our view around that. So your view on money and my view on money will be completely different, but we're looking at the same thing. So it allows them to get in the same place as money. They can actually understand where each other's coming from, but they're able to talk through that with each other and understand when they're worried and stressed. The next part is the fact that they have community around them. So for the first time in their lives, they have a place where they can share about money. So they can jump on and say, wow, we've had the most incredible wins. I had some people who are negotiating some power companies, and they're like, we've created, $1 million plus contract with them now. Where before that, we wouldn't have even seen the opportunity. We would have been happy to settle. Like I had other people say we were willing to get 15,000 and they walked away with 300,000. So they're willing to have the conversation around money and willing to kind of put out their wins. But I could have on the same call somebody say, I'm really struggling because cash flow is really tight. We're having difficulties with the bank. We're not really sure where to go, what to do, and we'll have equal amount of support for that. So all of a sudden they have this place where they can go and they can feel really at ease with money and know that they've got support. And I think that's been a really incredible change, because resilience is built obviously through experience, but resilience is also built through community. We need the support of others and knowing others have our back.
Yep.
And then obviously because of that, because they're feeling really good about money, they know how it works, they've got really good support behind it, showing up to do the things that they need to do and create their systems around money becomes so much easier. So all of a sudden they're seeing finances as this fun thing, and like you said, a little bit more sexy than what it was.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's no resistance there anymore. And then their businesses are going ahead in it like, leaps and bounds, because they've inadvertently unblocked the flow of money to their business. Because before that, they were resisting it from so many levels, and they weren't actually seeing the opportunities out there, because we can only see the opportunities that exist to what our mind's tuned into. So if we're tuned into lack and tuned into scarcity and there's not enough money and not enough hours in the day and all of that, then we won't see anything past that. So all of a sudden you change your perspective, you see money different, you get along with it, you work with it. All of these opportunities tend to open up. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, I've never seen this before. How is there so much money around? But they weren't tuned into seeing it. It could be through grants, it could be income from selling commodities, selling livestock. So many different ways all this money comes in unexpected because they've just changed their tune in terms of how they want to see the world and money in their business.
And once you get there, you've got the freedom to continue looking at it more, looking at the other opportunities in life, or even once you get the knowledge from Farms Advice, listening to the podcast and stuff, you can actually get that holiday at the end as well. The industry sort of sentiment is like the farmer should be a CEO, but maybe they should be a CFO and then get into the management of a CEO, of what you're putting out, knowing your numbers and where they're coming from, what you want from them and what they need from you. Does that make sense? But for yourself, what does wealth mean for farmers?
Yeah.
Do you think from your experience?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't mean the Lamborghini and the Ferrari sitting in the garage. Like, it's not what wealth is. I think for a lot of farmers, and especially the ones that I work with, it's very much centered around their values, and their values are family, their values are legacy, their values are freedom and choices, health. So for them, wealth is the ability to have great relationships, a great business, and a great life. So that's different for everybody, and it's different at all levels in terms of what they want. And it's less about the materialistic and more about the experiences they get to have in life with those who they love. And so I think that's the biggest thing that happens when you work with money, is that money is a relationship-based thing. And I'm seeing so much improvement in people's relationships because you take out the emotional charge. Like, money is the biggest emotional charge. And so for starters, they might see money as wealth, but money is never about what's in your bank account. It's not about the number or the figure, and that doesn't dictate wealth. It's about every single other area of life. And the bank account becomes basically a side effect to the richness of life.
I think for each and every episode that I do, I get a little buzz. This is one of those episodes that you get a buzz from. I like diving into the finances, the money and everything, just to know what our position is, but also take a hold of the opportunities, leverage and everything. But for the CFO in every farmer listening in today, what would be the one piece of farmers advice you'd like them to take away?
I think probably the biggest advice would be to give finances a go. Like, the ones who have kind of written it off, actually go, maybe there's more to this. Maybe I'll delve into this, because realistically, what we do in the office gives leeway to what happens in the paddock. So the paddock operations are great, but if we're not delving into the CFO stuff, then we're actually restricting what we can do in the paddock, which is not what we want it to be about. So what we want to do is, how can we bring confidence to money? How can we bring confidence to finances so it can actually enhance our experience going out in the paddock? And I think just know that there are people and places and events and courses and programs that you can do to always improve your financial literacy. Confidence comes with being competent. So if you feel like, there is a gap or there is more to learn, reach out and do the things that you need to do to bridge that gap, because that's part of the process to becoming, making finances fun or making them a whole lot more sexy.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of work to do as farmers within the financial aspect of it, but it can be it's super exciting to get your farm operating as best as it can, humming on all levels, and especially within and improving your money mindset is probably a huge thing of what you're working with your farmers as well. What's the best way to get in touch with yourself, Hayley, to become an abundant farmer?
Yep. So you can reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram. It's Hayley Grosser, the Abundant Farmer. Or HayleyGrosser.com. There's all the details of the Abundant Farmer and ways to book in a call and connect with me on there as well.
Beautiful. I'll add those into the show notes. Thank you so much for passing on your own piece of farm's advice. What was, before you go, what was the best? I've got 2 questions. I never remember the next one. What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received is that mindset is 80% of your success.
Yeah. That's a nice one. And the next one, this year's theme is building capacity, and we want to build capacity for those on the farms. And how do you see finance and money building capacity on farms, and how can we do it better?
Yeah, I think, so are you talking in terms of building capacity around resilience more so, or just in terms of increasing
it's
capacity?
broad. Each episode will take it into its own sort of means. Take it as you will for your sector, your niche.
Yeah. I think in order to build capacity, we need to be getting ourselves in the mix of it. So I think similar to what I said before, like we've actually got to get into the finances to build capacity around it. We can't build capacity in our finances or in our money or in our knowledge if we're sitting on the sidelines. So to build capacity, it's like I would say do what I did, like, investigate books and podcasts and what you can around money and mindset and improving your knowledge, improving that financial capacity, seeking out ways that you can do that, because the way we inherently receive our value is by the value that we give. So if we can increase our value versus our knowledge, then that's going to flow through into our farming experience. So the more we educate ourselves, the more we're able to basically build capacity and build those finances on our farm.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect. Warren Buffett's book's good for that, for finances as well. But that compounding of knowledge of what you're doing over time, and maybe you compound so much that your mum tells you that you're doing pretty good as well. Yeah. So Hayley, thank you so much for coming on Farms Advice Podcast. I don't think this will be the only time that you come on here. There's a bit of a good buzz making money, finance a little bit sexier in farming. Thank you. What did you take away from this episode? Just know that the podcast conversation does not stop there. Head across to your socials and hit us up at Farms Advice. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what type of content that you would like. You're the one predicting this and making it grow. We see the followerships, we see the numbers coming through, and it's spurring us on to make that next episode, but you've got to be there for the Farms Advice Podcast to continue. See you then.
My business used to be weighed down by the complexities of in-person payments. Then, Tap to Pay on iPhone and Stripe came along and changed everything. With Tap to Pay on iPhone and Stripe, I streamlined my payment process effortlessly. Now I can accept in-person, contactless payments right from my iPhone. No extra hardware required. What's truly remarkable is how I can cater to all of my customers' payment preferences. Whether they're using cards, Apple Pay, or other digital wallets, Tap to Pay on iPhone and Stripe ensure a smooth checkout experience every time. And it's not just me. Stripe helps businesses of all sizes, from local markets to global retailers, scale quickly and stay agile. To learn how Tap to Pay on iPhone and Stripe can help grow your revenue and reach, visit stripe.com/tapiphone.
Hey, welcome to the Next Wave podcast. Consider us your chief AI officer in your business. My name is Matt Wolf. I have the #1 YouTube channel in the AI space. I also run futuretools.com, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nathan Lands, founder of lore.com. We want to bring you the latest AI news and trends, show you how you can use AI in your business and personal life, and help make it super easy for you to understand and execute. We're going to equip you with the knowledge to thrive in this upcoming wave of change.